like, drop your pants. I'm like, whoa, all right. And he goes over and he grabs your nut, basically. He feels that thing that's like a squiggly thing in your nut. That I'm sure
Yeah.
I never knew what the hell that was.
The cords to the
I'm
nut.
like, is this thing right?
Yeah.
And so, the cords, exactly. So he kind of says, I need to get to that. So I'm going to come in.
After being in there and feeling it out.
Yeah, he's like, I need to get to that. And so there's one on one side, there's one on the other side. So I'm like, okay, like, seems pretty easy. He's like, so I'm going to take it out. He's like, I'm going to go in there and kind of reach in. I'm going to pull it out. Then I'm going to clamp two sides of it.
Not your nuts.
It's it's just the two.
Cord.
Yeah, and so it's kind of weird. So on the squiggly thing, you imagine it's going like this, and then it's going like a little hoop, and it goes back down, right?
Yeah.
And it's connected. And so he spreads it apart, then he's clamping two sides of it. So now you've got like a loop up here at top. Then he's cutting that middle part, and then he cauterizes both sides. So now you've got two clamps and two cauterized.
This kind of sounds like a pap smear, the way my wife describes it. There's clamping, there's threading.
This guy, he's right here in town. 11 minutes to start to finish.
Damn.
11 minutes, both sides.
So the advice to the new dad, Maxwell's 3.5 years old. You've got 3 in the game. 3's solid. So I hear two things. Like 2 kids is kind of like a good number with rentals, with going out to eat. Like it's just a good numbers. But I was 3. I came from I have a brother and a sister. So tell us about a 2 versus a 3.
It's exponentially harder.
Yeah.
With 3?
The third is we've lost everything we've ever learned. So between 1 and 2, it was just repeating the process, all the things, all the routines you had, the nighttime, the feeding, all that good stuff, whatever, diaper changing. You go to 3, and it's like, I think it's just you're outnumbered now.
Yeah.
And it's all hell breaks loose.
What was the time in between?
3 years for each one.
So
which that's helpful because now my first is 8. He just turned 8, and then the little guy's turning 2. So he just babysits them basically.
Nice.
Huge.
And they play all day long, which is that part now. I think now that he's 2, it's starting to be helpful. And my little guy's now like, he went from being 6 to 8 since the baby's been here, and he just wants to be helpful. He loves to help out.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
That's sweet.
That's nice. When he was 6, he just wanted to play video games, do his own thing.
Yeah.
So he had no help. It was kind of.
So you started Chomps about 11 years ago?
12
years ago.
Damn, it's been
and
that
so
long.
You had your first kid 4 years into.
4 years in. Yeah.
Explain, because I think about that being that we're 3 years in, and the idea of having a kid is super daunting right now. What was that having a kid in that dynamic of building the company?
That was mayhem. So that year, 2016, was insanity for us. So we had just moved back down to Naples at the very, very end of 2013. So we were kind of getting our footing. We moved into a condo first. We had dogs in the beginning. So to your point about rentals, it was such a pain trying to find a place that would allow us to have dogs.
Yeah.
And so we found this condo in Treviso Bay, that golf course, whatever. And that worked out really well for us. So we stayed there for a couple of years while we just house hunted. Then we found a house. And so all in 2016, the first week of February, we find out my wife's pregnant with our first kid, which we weren't trying. It was a big surprise, and we were definitely not ready for that. We weren't ready for it by any means financially. I mean, we were just partying and traveling all the time. Like we were just living like college kids,
Yeah.
but just having fun. So anyway, that was a big change. And then we went to buying a house, and I was broke as a joke. So I had to do the typical, FHA loan, as little down as I possibly could. And then using all of the cash that we had to renovate it over time. And so it was just the biggest year ever. And then Trader Joe's launched. So we found out in February we were landing Trader Joe's. The business 10X's from 2015 to 2016. But my life was it was still just me and Rashid running the business. And so I was full-time by then. Rashid was still part-time. So I'm back and forth going to Chicago, setting up these massive inspection processes up in these warehouses in Chicago, all around kind of O'Hare, that area. And it's funny, I could tell, my little guy, when he was born in September, for the first like 9 months, I swear I saw him more on FaceTime than I did in person. It was terrible.
tough.
It was terrible, but it was, I hope he doesn't really remember all of that. We have a really good connection, so I don't think it was too detrimental, but it was what the business needed for sure though.
Yeah. So I think about it all the time because I see a lot of super successful entrepreneurs. They either through that build, they either had a day one, like you're talking about, like your wife sounded. How did that go with, were you open and honest with her of like, hey, this is going to be probably the craziest year of our life? Or was it just like, while you were in it, you were starting to figure out like, okay, this is going to be the craziest year of our life?
That was it. We just both went into it and she was kind of just like, okay, like she kind of knew what we needed to do. And she knew that I wasn't going to go get some safe job. Like it's just not my style. Like I just won't do that. And she knows that. I don't think she wanted that for us either, right? She wanted to, because she comes from an entrepreneurial family as well. So I think she kind of knows like this is what it takes. You gotta hustle.
Yeah.
So, but she's always had my back on that. And then in the beginning, again, I was gone all the time. We had no help because we couldn't afford any help. So we had we had parents to lean on every so often, but it was mostly her just holding it down.
I remember we met, I think we met 2016, right? 2015, 2016.
Probably before.
I think we had lunch in Mercado.
Yeah.
I remember, and you're like, yeah, and that was right around the time when there was, I think, one or two big exits in the,
Exactly.
in that space. I was like, holy shit, you're going for it, Pete. I'm like, crowded space, but you had that look. You're like, there's nothing stopping me. You were ready to go.
I think at that time we were probably around 400,000 or 500,000 in revenue, and you kept telling me you need to get to 5 million. That's like that's the part where it starts getting easier. And like you were like, I remember you kind of saying that. I'm like, okay, well, let's get there. Then we got there like the year later because Trader Joe's obviously was a game changer for us, and everything else was kind of just growing along with it. But yeah, that was the first day.
10X.
Well, kudos, Pete.
10X.
You stuck with it, and to say you knocked it out of the park is an understatement. Like you're next level.
Knocking. Yeah, I'm not done yet.
Crushing.
Still going.
Crushing.
Still going. Thank you.
But listen, on paper, and that's what we like to talk about here. Like it's beautiful, man. Like you are like the success story, and we love that. But we like to talk about like it's not easy, and that's what we share all the time. Like having a baby. Not knowing like, is this going to work or not? Having everything into it, fortunately you had a partner, so you shared some of that risk, you shared some of that, kind of angst and stress, but it's terrifying. Like, how did you get through those moments of like the unknown where you just head down, or like, what was your mindset around it?
So Rashid and I are both very similar where we need some sort of stress, like challenge to like get us going. We get really bored when things are a little too easy and they start coasting. And I don't know why that is, like, but maybe they just like a challenge or something. I'm not quite sure. I can't explain why exactly, but that's typically whenever we face, if you look back at, like, we call it the Chomps roller coaster, because you'll face the things that are kind of like these existential crises where you're kind of like, man, this is the end right here. It's all over. And then somehow we like power through and you come out twice, 3, 4 times stronger than we were just right before we went into it. It's like COVID was a perfect example, which you faced the same exact thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, we came out just guns blazing out of it, because I think what happens is it forces you to kind of take a step back, or you're like, okay, what's going on in the business? What's happening? And it kind of forced us to get really smart about everything that was going on. We didn't want to have to lay off anybody. We had an awesome team. We spent a lot of time finding these people, and they were awesome to work with. So we were like, we don't want to let any of these people go. We need to figure out how do we keep them and not lose the business, right? So we got so smart about spend and where our, especially marketing dollars, because we were spending so much. So what we did is like so extreme. We actually just turned marketing off. All paid ad spend, done, off, 100%. And that was like, we found that. By the way, so sales kept growing.
Yeah.
Even with it off at a very similar rate that it was turning it off.
Did you have a VP of marketing that was like running that side of your business where he would, I don't want to say convincing, but like you need to spend here. And it was more like eyes on, like you're getting this much eyes, it's worth it. And there's not really any true KPIs around around that kind of spend.
Well,
can't imagine what
I
you're
would
spending.
say our performance marketing team is awesome. So like it's our current SVP of marketing she started as like a media buyer. Like she was like literally that's all she was doing. She's worked her way up and she's actually awesome. And she was actually the one to lead that whole charge and kind of finding out, what is working, and how do you figure it out? You turn it off and then see what happens. And so that's what we did. And then very slowly went back into it, and spending in areas where we were measuring and making sure. The problem was we just kept growing so fast that we were like, okay, we're going to spend because this is what we're supposed to do. Like a percentage of sales is going to go towards, marketing spend. And then the business kept growing and we were like, okay, it's working. But it's like, we never actually had a chance to measure and see what is actually being most impactful. So anyway, that's kind of where it's been now. We went back, we do all the same type of paid ads that we were before. It's just very so measured, like everything's A/B tested every which way. Content and creative in particular, like we're getting so good about that, just the types of ads that we're putting out. Then I think just our influencer strategy is so different too now than it used to be.
Talk about that, because I've been in content marketing for like 5 years, and 5 years ago it was heavily ambassador based, to where ambassador gets some sort of retainer. They have a huge following on Instagram. But what I've seen is the buying behaviors of like the conversion rate on those influencers has gone down and down and down. And what I've seen is the micro influencers, because you get more creative, like doing that different spend. Explain your guys' strategy around that.
Well, it's quality. And the other thing is the authenticity too. So like we don't just go pick out like Joe Schmo influencer because they have some following. It's somebody they usually post about us first without us even reaching out to them. And then we're like, oh, wow, this seems like a really good fit for us. And look at all their content and it's so aligned. Their following looks like it's, that works. And then the engagement is the other piece, like where you want to make sure they have an engaged audience. I think you see a lot of these like influencers. And if you actually take a minute to actually look through who their following is, it doesn't make sense. And you're like, okay, how much of this is, bought and how much of this is truly
It's real.
Real. Yeah, exactly. So I think we've done, we've just kind of revamped that side of it. And again, having that authentic, we pass on more than we take on now. Now it's a little bit different now. Now we have a trending brand. So we get a lot more inbound interest from big names now, which is great. But even then we say no more than we say yes. So.
And then going back to these points of stress, I heard a quote by John D. Rockefeller that said, on the other side of anxiety that you don't feel like you can handle is usually the best stories or the best parts of the business. It's like usually when you see that exponential growth. Talking to the younger entrepreneur, how do you coach yourself through those moments where like you're going through a crisis in the business and it feels like you can't catch a breath? Like you feel like legitimately, sometimes when I've gone through it, I'm lucky because I've had Ben as a mentor who's like been able to sit me down in those moments and be like, you are going to be okay. But if you had to explain it from your perspective, what would you?
So when we talk about like traits of a champion, we call ourselves the champions. We're not the type of people that ever shy away from things that make us uncomfortable. To your point, that's exactly why. It's because everything that you ever wanted and hoped for is always on the other side of fear or being basically uncomfortable. Right?
Yep, absolutely.
People always look for and are going to lean into what makes them feel comfortable, what they're okay with, what they're good at, right? And so we're always trying to push ourselves to do things that we hate. I hate talking into a microphone. I'm sitting here right now. I've gotten used to it because I've just been doing it for all the time. But back when I first started this, I would have been like, no, that's not happening. Getting up in front of a bunch of people. I'm an introvert, actually. I don't like getting up in front of people talking. I don't like being in the spotlight. But it's just those things. You just got to keep doing them and you get better and better at them. And then you find that by doing those things, you're getting the exposure that and new doors are opening up. People are reaching out that never would have if you didn't do those things. Mm-hmm. And that's just the way it's always worked for us. And so, networking is the same way too.
Uncomfortable in the comfort.
Uncomfortable, yeah.
Being comfortable in the uncomfort.
There you go. Yeah. That's it.
And on a tactical side, when you're going through the 10X from going from $500,000 in revenue to pretty much, was it a 10X through that year?
That was it.
How, you said that you were managing your spend a lot. Like once COVID hit, you got very granular on your spend. I always see when you go through these kind of hockey stick periods, it can kind of feel like you'll just start spending money kind of haphazardly. How do you balance that now, being at the position that you guys are at now, or maybe before you guys obviously blew up?
Yeah, well, we're constantly talking about how we're trying to control growth, right?
Yep.
And there right now, we don't even know where true demand is. We can't make sticks fast enough. Like it's just where we're at right now. They're pre-sold before we make them, which is obviously a good problem to have. It's still a problem though, and it still keeps us up at night because there's things that we think about. We're like freaking out about. Like I'm like, okay, there's out of stocks all over the country right now, and some of the biggest retailers under the sun. And so one, it's trying to manage that relationship with the retailer. And then two, it's trying to maintain, and making sure that those customers don't just walk away and find a replacement. That's scary to me. Cause like, you're like, man, this thing's like a rocket ship, but where's the gravity? What is that gravity? Is that because we're not pulling through, we're not, putting the product on shelf? Are they going to go find something else? And is that going to, take the wind out of the sails? So, it's scary, man. But we're, all that we can do though is try to control growth. Hopefully I'm answering your question, I think, because we're trying to very intentionally think about where, if we have inventory right now, where is it going to go that's going to be most impactful to maintain relationships, but also keep customers. And so it's a lot of decision making. We're on it all the time. But yeah, just staying in control is important. If you stop watching, that's when the wheels fall off.
Yeah. And then speaking of your distribution strategy, because I found your guys' product in Sprouts, a better for you grocery store, makes like the product market fit makes sense there. Hearing your story originally, Trader Joe's is when you guys saw that was your first retail play that you guys made. Now looking at going forward, do you feel like you guys could be in every gas station in the country at this point? And it's just about getting there?
Yeah, it's getting there and having the right distribution model too. Like you need to have a good distribution partner, because the problem is that we're up against the big guys in our category in particular, where we're fighting for that same shelf space, where they control, it's called DSD. He knows what this is, but direct store delivery. So they have boots in the ground going into the stores, and then they're not only just bringing the product into the back of the store into their little warehouse, they're putting the product on shelf, they're merchandising it, they're setting tags up, and they're making sure that you stay on shelf, and they're there every week, if not more often than that.
Okay.
What's going to happen is if I just go right now and I work with a typical distributor, they're going to go take my case of product, put it in the back of the store, and then hope that the people that work in the store put it on the shelf and maintain and merchandise. That's the issue. And so that's honestly why we've kind of held off. The way we kind of think about it though is like, okay, if we can create an amazing trending brand where people in the store realize, and they're thinking about Chomps, because we're gonna get lost in the shuffle. But if they're looking for Chomps, like I got to put the Chomps back out, then we stand a chance. The problem is like we don't, like from a margin perspective, it's so expensive to have that DSD network, and we don't want to go own a DSD network, which some of these players do. And so so we're gonna have to leverage a typical distributor, but what can we do on our end to make sure that we're standing out and staying top of mind for the people in the store? So it's a challenge.
And in addition, I'm assuming the competitors that you're up against, they're owning that that space. I don't want to say they're owning the buyers, but they've got the leverage to, if you're a threat, just like me, I'm up against Big Sugar. Shit that I've seen it's tough. You're battling, and they'll remind the buyers how much they spend to make sure strategically that somehow you're not front forward.
Yeah,
it's hard.
It is really hard. So, but we've at this stage now we're in most channels that aside from C-store. The thing about it is in the meat snacks category, the big players make 60 to 70% of their revenue is all in C-store, if not more than that.
So it was C-store?
Convenience stores.
Okay, gotcha.
Like gas
stations.
7-Eleven.
Yep. Gotcha.
It's a big opportunity for us. The white space is huge if we do it right, and we're just trying to do it right. So we're starting right now. There's really high-end gas stations. You think like racetrack, Wawa.
Yep,
Oh, wow.
100%.
You know, this you kind of pick a handful of these and you go for those, and then you make sure that it's working, your distributions model's working, you're able to build the relationships you need to stay top of mind and just execute. And then if that works, then you can kind of expand from there. So we take things so slowly, though. That's just the way, that's always been the name of the game.
You talked about controlling. I saw recently you went vertical, which is massive. Like, how does that play into just inventory management? Do you feel you have a lot more control with your destiny, being that, you know, you're handling the manufacturing now?
Yeah, so that's a JV, by the way. So we don't want to own a facility. So, and we don't actually. And even in that scenario, it's a JV. So we own the packaging equipment, the product that's the packaging equipment's actually putting the sticks in the film, and then that we own that part of it.
Which I'm assuming was a huge investment.
Huge, yeah, but it's worth it though. To your point, to have that control, but that's the same way we work in all co-packers. Even if it's a complete, it's like a shared facility where there's other co-packers. We always have, we own the packaging equipment. No other product is made and run on our product. So we've got like 10 operational lines right now. We'll have 30 by the end of next year.
Wow.
And so you saw that facility is a big one. That's a 300,000 square foot facility in Missouri. It's called Mexico, Missouri. So yeah, we're producing in Mexico. We've got some other ones in the works we haven't announced yet that kind of working through final things, which actually will come online before that one, because that one's going to be a massive project. But some of the other ones are going to come on sooner.
Are you guys still basing everything out of the farms in not Tanzania?
Tasmania.
See
if you're going to get it.
Yeah.
So Tassie. Yeah, that's like Southern Australia and Tassie. So yeah, we bring all of our beef in from, most of the beef in from those regions. We're kind of expanding because I was
going to say that, like, it's one thing to do that, you know, when you're at a certain level. Now I can imagine trying to get into every gas station in the country. It's going to be...
Yeah, you need redundancy in the supply chain. So that's the other thing that we're kind of thinking through. That's from protein sourcing, from all ingredients. We need redundancy across every level. And then you got things like this, where this port shut down this week. Like all of our stuff comes in through Philly. Luckily, we have a plant in Idaho that makes our products. So we have already had stuff coming in through LA. But you can't, you know, foresee that type of stuff. But just having the redundancy and kind of diversification. So when stuff like that happens, hopefully it's not taking down your entire supply chain.
And then going back to a little bit, because a lot of entrepreneurs that I talk to, when they're at the very early stages, obviously we're talking super high level right now. Once your company's fully developed, that first like block, who did you lean on from a mentorship perspective to go from 0 to 1 to get to that? Because you said it took 4 years to get to 500K.
Yeah, basically. So it would have been 23 years.
3 years to get to half. I think our track was just about the same as well. I think that's probably the scariest time in most entrepreneurs' life, because you just really don't know if it's going to work. How did you, number one, who did you lean on? And then number two, when did you start to find out what your superpowers were as a CEO?
Yeah. Okay. So I still don't know what those things are, but anyway. But to say, you know, what we did originally, it was, we just try to get in touch with anybody that will listen to us. I mean, that's just the way it is. You have to just be ruthless and stay in front of everybody. I'm out here meeting with him, meeting with anybody that would take a lunch with me and meet with me just to pick their brains. What did you go through? The biggest thing is, like, people always want to talk about their wins and all of that. And I do that all the time too. That's what you like talking about. But then, like, you know, the more value, you get more value from talking about the shit that people have gone through. So, and like we always say, we want to learn from other people's scar tissue. Yeah. That's the most valuable thing you can do as an entrepreneur, is spend as much time as you can hearing from other people that screwed things up, and then how they fix it. How did you power through? And then in general, just being resilient and having that mindset where you were saying that you need to have somebody that can kind of help you level set and be like, you know, the world's caving in on me right now, but it's like, no, you're going to get through this. It sucks, but you just need to get over the hump, and just kind of maintaining that mindset. The crazy thing about it is when you first start out, that's when it's so hard to have that mindset. When we've been doing this for, you know, 12 years. How long have you been doing it? You've been doing it for
17.
Yeah. I mean,
exhausting.
Yeah, but it's exhausting. But when something bad happens, you kind of like, all right.
After
Yeah,
Like you just kind of
yeah.
like, all right, roll our sleeves up.
and it's always something. It's
Always. It's
always
constant. And it's like, and we just had this conversation this week. It's like one step forward, two steps back.
Always.
And then like, that's how it always feels. And hopefully if you're looking at the numbers and like the overarching, performance of the business, you're seeing that up and to the right, which we maintain that, but it doesn't feel that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ever. It never feels that way. It always feels like you're like, the world is caving in on you.
Yeah.
It's heavy.
Yeah.
It's a heavy feeling.
I'd be interested once you did start to 10X and you had to go from like the doer to the leader. What was that process?
That's the hardest
like?
part for me.
Yes, 100%.
That's the hardest part for me. I have no problem grinding, working 24/7, just doing that stuff, being the guy doing it. Switching from independent contributor to the actual leader of a team, it's so difficult for me. And being an introvert, like I mentioned before, that makes it even more hard because I just don't feel a need to start like to talk for other people to hear me talk. I don't have that. I know if I have something important to say, I say it, and it's usually like, bam, bam, like it's like very quick. I get it in it, I say it and done. I don't know. I'm just not one of those people like a keynote speaker type person where I rah the team up. I have a really hard time doing that. But you have to again like get good at that and put yourself in that position over and over and over again. Man, I'm still so challenged with the way I even just communicate with people because I'm always so focused on just getting things done as quickly as possible. And I always forget that like I can be too direct.
Yep.
And so we hired a leadership coach because of that, just to like help us with, it's like understanding yourself, how you're pre-wired, then understanding how everyone around you is wired, the people that we work with. And then you kind of learn how to communicate with them. So that like, it's not just about what you say, it's how you say it, when you say it. It's understanding that not everybody makes decisions the way that you do.
Yeah.
Rashid and I are polar opposite people. Polar opposite. Like when we make a decision, I'm kind of like, all right, I need to accomplish this. Okay, let's go. I start working on it immediately. He likes to take and look for all of the information he could possibly get before taking a step.
Yeah.
And so we used to butt heads because of that. And
because your action, my co-founder is Jace is the exact same way. I'm action oriented, so he's getting mad at me because I'm running with my I'm running with my hair on fire, and I'm getting mad at him because I'm like, where's the urgency? You know what I mean? Like I always have that sense of urgency. That's interesting though.
Yeah. So
do you have? Are you more like operational? Do you have more of the operational chops and Rashid like? The other side, like how do you guys balance
he's the
each other?
ops guy. He is the ops guy. Yeah, he's really good with ops too. This is what he did before. So he was an operations consultant. So he would go into businesses and he could just sit there and just be like, that's wrong, this is wrong, that's wrong. Here's an opportunity.
Was he like a McKinsey guy?
Basically, he was at Alvarez and Marcel. So he's
How did you guys meet? Tell us that background.
We met through a mutual buddy in Chicago. So I was living in Chicago for 5 years when I started the company and then the company first started out as like it was almost like what Butcher Box is now, right? It was called Logic Meat Locker originally. And we were at a poker night and we just kind of got to chatting. And he was kind of telling me about like what he does for a living. And he was like, so what do you do? And I'm like, well, I've got a million things going. I was like I always do, but this is a project I'm working on. So I told him about it and he's like, that's pretty interesting. And he's just one of those people that just is always intrigued and wants to ask more questions. He's like, well, why this? Why that? Why? And I'm like, man, I don't know. So, and I could just tell by the way he was like interested in it all that like he'd be really good. And his focus was ops and finance. I'm like, well, perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, anything with a spreadsheet, I'm like, please don't, like, I'll look at the spreadsheet and show me the cells and that I got to look at. And I can read it really quick, but I do not want to be putting those things together. That's not how my brain works.
That's such a blessing, man. That's such a blessing. I would say like through my journey, same way, like I'm not the operation and finance guy. And that was like, you go through COOs and finance people, especially if that's, your blind spot. But to have that as a partner, it's something as I build other businesses, I'm always trying to find that balance. And it's tough to find it, sure.
No, that's exactly it. So there's that book called Rocket Fuel. Have you guys ever read that? Yeah. So that's a good one. So I never really had we never had a title or a way to like explain the relationship, but it was that was the way it went. And I'm reading it and I'm like, this is us.
Yeah.
This is how So it's like it's the visionary and the integrator is
Yep.
what it is. And so like that one is,
Exactly right.
he's the integrator. And so I have all these crazy ideas, and then he kind of, the one thing I would say that it's not, you also need to have somebody, in my point of view, that knows how to work with someone like the opposite, right? Like me. So he's really, really good at working with me, where most people would probably roll their eyes at all of my stupid ideas. But he actually will be like, sit and think about it for a second. And he'll be like, actually, well, that idea doesn't work because of this, but what if we did this, this, and this? And so like, so our brainstorm sessions are always super productive because of that. And he doesn't just write it off. He's always just like, he's very attentive to that. So I think without having that relationship, we would never have been able to accomplish all the things that we have. Because again, like my ideas I have ideas, but hopefully they're thought starters, and that's what they should be. And I try to instill that same thought process in the rest of the team. And I think most of the team looks at me like, "Oh God, here he comes with another idea."
Yeah. Because that's the definite.
Those can be expensive ideas.
Exactly.
It took me a while to understand it. And again, like I wish I had that other side, as a partner to say, hey, dude, we don't need to get into salad dressings. Let's just wait it out. Wait, dude. And I'm like, sugar's in everything. That was something that I had to learn over time. And I go back, I talk about this, just like having that partner is clutch that can kind of give you that checks and balance.
And the other thing now, having a really good team that leverages data for all the decisions that we make. Like we don't make decisions without data backing it up.
Yeah.
Which I'm glad that we got there very quickly. Actually, I tell this, like the way we
When
built
did you start making those data-driven decisions?
very early. So we built our sales team. We built so different than most other CPG brands do. It was me doing sales, and then we had one sales guy with me, and then we built a team it was a category management and insights team. So we brought one person in first, and she was able to we just saw the effect of her coming in and being able to pull data, and it allowed us to get really smart about performance and where the product is selling well, where it's not, where we need to focus our time and attention. And it allowed us to go, and we want to be able to go deep in each of the retailers that we're at. We're not worried about going super wide. I'm not worried about when we get into C-store, like we were talking about before.
Yeah.
I want to go in when we need to do it right, and we need to be the number one very quickly.
Okay.
And that's the way we think about every channel, every retailer, every door that we go into. We want to make sure we have that same mindset. But the fact of the matter is, if you're able to do that and perform really well, if you're a top performer, and if you're able to show things like incrementality, that was like huge, because we're showing that we're not, you put us on a shelf next to the incumbents, the big jerky brand.
Yeah.
We're not stealing market share from them. We're bringing new customers to the set that never shopped there before. That, to a category manager, is music to their ears.
Yeah.
You're going to grow the category instead of cannibalizing. And so that was the story. As soon as she came in, she was able to tell that, and it no longer it became so easy to sell Chomps. Like, literally could walk in and just be like, here it is. And they're like, oh, this is great. So this is 60, 70% incremental at these major retailers. We got to give it a shot. And so that we do it, and we prove it over and over and over again, and part of that's because we have a 70% female customer base.
No way.
That's crazy.
Exactly.
That's insane.
That's insane.
So that's it. So I mean, the way we built the business, I think, as a bootstrapped, self-funded business very early on, we had to do what we could do with no money. So social media was where it was at.
Yeah.
And so I think, first off, I think social media there was a lot more females on there. I think our content was pretty, it was female friendly, and I think we learned very early on that we didn't want to have a feminine brand. We wanted it to be female friendly. So it was very easy to do. I mean, you look at the meat snacks category, it was a lot of these like dark blacks and reds.
Yeah.
Grizzly bears, animals.
Yeah, and it's like this is for guys. It's only for guys. And so we came in and we gave something that was all like inclusive, and it worked.
I heard you on a podcast where you were mentioning, we're in content, and so we help build people's brands and stuff like that, and everybody's just scared of niching. everybody's scared of niching because they're like, oh, my value is also here. My value is also here. And they want to just be this very broad brand. And I heard you talk about in the B2B pod that you did 3 years ago, and you were talking about the hyper niche Whole30, CrossFit, paleo, how you started that. How did that niche help get that traction to that 500K before you obviously exploded in retail?
Well, it's exactly that. I mean, we didn't have the money, so where could we be most impactful? It's by going deep and building real relationships within these very niche audiences. And it was just going and meeting the key influencers. And it was, I guess back then it weren't called influencers yet, but they were the key, people that were thought leaders in that space. And so a lot of these were bloggers or whoever it might be. We're reaching out to them, becoming friends. We're, whatever we could possibly do. We're partnering with them. We'd actually ask them if they can go and make a dedicated email blast to all their followers, or whatever we could possibly do to get in front of their audience. And that worked out really well for a number of reasons. Just like with an influencer now, they have this credibility that us as a small brand that nobody knows of, we don't have any credibility. So how do you get that? You partner with somebody in some way. If the introduction's coming from this person, they already trust them, they're going to trust the brand, right? And so that worked out really well. And it was just, brick by brick and, very grassroots and kind of going from one community to the next. But we didn't try to go too wide. That was the thing. We wanted to own and be the most popular meat stick brand in paleo, and then in Whole30, and that's just how we did it. One core community after the next, and they built up. And luckily, it worked out well, timing wise, which we couldn't really foresee. This is that each of those communities was going to blow up. Like they just were all on this massive trend.
Yeah.
When did you know you had done because you're talking about Whole30, CrossFit. When did you know that you did the niche right to where you could then go niche adjacent? Like, or what was the decision making behind that specifically?
So it's funny. We didn't go out trying to prove that out. Things just kept happening where we were like, wait, that worked?
Yeah.
And so Uncrate was, I tell this story all the time. Uncrate was this, do you guys know that website?
Mm-mm.
So it's like a website and an app, and they'll actually feed you every day. It's like a curated list of cool things for guys to buy. And a lot of it's if you have disposable income and you want to buy, I don't know, anything, you could put this, drip on there. You could they have everything from alcohol to motorcycles to cars to watches to you name it. Right? Anything guys.
Yeah.
It's almost like a Maxim magazine before stuff to buy. And you can click in right there and buy it through their link. They don't take anything. They just feature you, and they just think they just have a good following, right? Rashid somehow got a mailing address for their office, sent in Chomps, and then months later, he's in Bali on his honeymoon. This is the end of 2013, right the week of Thanksgiving of 2013. I'm driving a U-Haul back from Chicago because I'm finally moving back to Naples, and our phones are just blowing up. And as I'm driving, I see that we had Shopify, and to change it.
That's awesome.
And so I'm looking at the thing, and I'm like, I've got thousands of orders. I'm like, crap. I built the website myself, and using a template. I'm like, I must have done something wrong. Something's broken, I guess. Whatever. So I'm like, I'll check it when we stop. So I check it when we stop, and then on Shopify, you can click in the referring website, and you kind of see where it's coming from. Every single one of them was uncrate.com.
Get out.
That's awesome.
And so I go to uncrate.com, and I see we're right on the homepage. It's a big picture of Chomps right there. And a link to our store to buy it. And that's when it clicked that we're like, oh my God, this is for anybody. Anybody wants this, right?
Wow.
And from there on out, we were looking for it. We were like, okay, this is interesting because I think this has much more potential than we ever imagined.
And then how quickly after that did Trader Joe's come? And I heard you talk about it a little bit, but how did that work? Because I'd imagine being a D2C brand and you're kind of comfortable in that lane, taking a step in retail, and then not to mention Trader Joe's, which I'm pretty sure the model at Trader Joe's is they never really take the white label for the most part.
Yeah. And another, it's impossible to get into Trader Joe's. I remember when you told me, I'm like, how the fuck did you get into Trader Joe's? He's like, let me throw you a contact. I was like, dude, I've been doing this forever. I can't even get a phone call.
But it was your favorite grocery store.
He smoked.
I still love Trader Joe's.
You smoked it. You're on every fucking aisle in the country. That's insane. That doesn't happen. Just for the record, like that's not normal.
Listen, we're very fortunate. That's and they've been an amazing partner to us. And and believe me, everybody asks us like, how'd you do that? How'd you get it? Can you give me someone to call? And I'm like, I don't even know who to call there. Like I honestly, I wish I could. I don't know. But yeah, that's just, they reached out to us, and that's kind of the way it worked. And kudos to their buyers. Oh my God, they knew our product better than us, right? Think about that. Like that's just like, we always think about that. I'm like, these people are like really, really smart. They go out and they look for something. They're like, our customers need this. I don't know if it's database. They're so, they don't share anything with us. So I have no idea.
They still use fax.
Yeah, they do.
Crazy.
Yeah. And they come out guns blazing and
Not to get too far off, like not to get too woo woo. Did you manifest that? Were you walking through the aisles at Trader Joe's and being like, one day?
Opposite, actually, where I'd go through there and people would be like, why don't you try to sell to Trader Joe's? And I'm like, they're never going to take it.
That's insane.
Literally, I was so like negative about it, I didn't even try. And now I'm realizing I'm an idiot. Like I should have but in fairness, though, maybe maybe it was a better outcome because they reached out and I don't know, but.
I was going to touch on that. I mean, just hearing your story, a lot of it sounds like just timing and like you don't seem to force anything. And I think with a lot of entrepreneurs, like you get in that mindset. Like, I mean, I was the opposite. I'm like, we gotta be here. And I ran around like an animal till I had a mental breakdown.
Yeah.
But you're very, ever since I've met you, like just very calm about business, very calm about like, it's almost like you knew you were fine. And it was going to happen. I'm
glad it seems like that because it's not how it feels in my brain and when I'm not sleeping at night. But it's, I've gone through, listen, I think before starting Chomps, I think you guys probably know most of my story where I fell flat on my face and I lost everything. So, I mean, there's no, you hit rock bottom in terms of like financially, and then everything I've ever worked for at the time was like poof gone, taken away from you. And so it's like, but then I also realized that a lot of that stuff was caused by me. Like I'd made some bad decisions. And so it was a learning opportunity for me. Luckily it happened in my 20s, not now when I've got a wife and kids and all of that. So I think that's a blessing to be able to learn those things pretty early on. But yeah, I guess I also realized coming back from the depths of despair, and actually rebounding to be able to pay bills. And, that's all I remember. Like my wife and I, before Mav was born, like I was so confused about what I wanted to spend my time doing. I was doing real estate to pay bills, but I loved Chomps. Right. And I'm like, God, and we would talk about this like every night. I'd be like, I wish there was like a way to like, that I could like do Chomps and like pay bills with it. Like, I wish I could do this full time. And we every single night. And so, and like, I don't know how like religious you guys are. We pray every single night. And I say the same prayer every night to this day. I say, please God, put the right people in the right place at the right time to help this come together.
Yeah.
And that's like, that's the mindset. And like, we've been praying that way forever. I mean, since you've known each other.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's, I think that keeping that mindset all the time, and obviously being grateful for the things that you get and all that.
And so you talk about being a very hair on fire. Like I can take the ball into my hands and I want to drive it forward. And then you talked about the mindset of a champion. How do you integrate the mindset that you have into the culture of your company?
It's a really good question. I think, it's funny actually. Now, I think what's happening right now is I've learned I need to not do too much of that, right? Because the things that we need to do need to be very strategic, especially at this stage. Early on, someone like me is good. Like I'm like that, my value is that I can just keep working and working and working, and I can take a lot of blows and get, punched over and over and over again and keep getting back up. I don't know why that is. I'm just kind of like, I've always kind of been like that. But now this is actually where we need to take time and be strategic about everything. And my team gets so annoyed by me too, because I'm always like, have we made a decision yet? Are we doing this? What's going on? They're like, well, we don't have all of the data yet. We're running an audit. We're doing this. And I'm like, well, I'm going to go make these decisions over here. I'm going to do this. And like, so I've learned though, I have to just be patient, you know? And, so anyway, you were saying I feel like I'm very patient, but I'm like, I'm relaxed about things in some ways, but, I'm impatient. I need to get things done though.
Well, you just said something like, are you at that stage where you take a step back and you just let the business breathe, observe, pull out data points, the way you're, a lot more calculated than impulsive?
Yeah. So historically, Rashid and I were always very reactive about things, just because everything was growing so quickly and we didn't have a big team. We've been hiring a lot of really, really good people around us, especially in the higher leadership levels. And these people are just so much smarter than us, obviously. And we need to lean on them and give them the time to do the things that's why we hired them, right?
Yeah.
To do those things and make those big decisions for us. So yeah, nowadays our role is to, keep an eye on what's coming, what's 2 miles down the road, what's happening now. Our lens is no longer what's happening next month. It's 3 years from now, 5 years from now. And that's kind of where our mindset is.
Did you feel like you went through an identity shift, and how did you manage that identity shift? Like, how did you not lose the core parts of what made you successful at the very beginning and still feel like you have an outlet for it now?
Well, what I would say is Chomps as a whole in our business, we want to run the business like we're doing $100,000 a year still in sales. And we don't want to lose that scrappy mindset. And we talk about that all the time. Part of the reason that we built the team the way that we do, it's simple. Like everything that we do with the business is simple. Anything we could do to delete complexity from every which part of the business. If you're thinking about innovation, if you think about the way we build the team, delete complexity, right? Right now we have 111 people on the team right now. We're operating right now with so the rule of thumb is you have usually one full-time employee for every $1 million in revenue that you do. We're operating with about 20% of what we should have right now. And that's like, we run lean and mean, And so we like that though, because our team is like, there's top performers for one, but it allows us to stay really nimble. I think you start getting all these different layers and you build this enormous organization, it becomes really difficult to manage. And we're still as nimble as we were back in the day, and we make very quick decisions, and not as quick. We have a board now. That's why we have some governance in place and all of that to make sure we don't mess things up, but we're still moving quick though.
Going to more of a not as much tactical and talking more personal development. Obviously you're fit. It looks like you take care of yourself. What was that role during, the hair on fire days, and how has that shifted now? Like, did you create space for obviously your wife, but your physical health, and what role did that or didn't that play?
That's huge for me because I'm very ADD and very just hyperactive. And so I wake up in the morning with too much energy.
Yep.
I need to blow it off somehow.
Yeah.
So I have to lift weights or go to the gym or whatever. If I don't do that, my day is very bad.
Yep.
I have extreme anxiety. I'm like depressed, and it's like the worst feel. Like that combination is like negative energy, but like lots of it, and it's just like, oh my God. So I have to have that outlet, and so that for me, I've learned that very early on. If I'm in a hotel and I have to get up for an early meeting, I do whatever I can do right on the floor in that hotel and just bust it out. Because I know if I don't, I'm gonna have a really bad day.
That resonates.
I've learned that, and then that's how I start the day. And then at night is like my time with my wife and my family. And then every night before I go to bed, it's like, it's me, it's my wife and I's time. We always find something to do together. Nowadays it's just kind of like, once you put the kids down, we're like, sit on the couch, and you're like, we try to watch like a show, and you're barely watching it. You're kind of just like
Done.
but we're doing that together, and that's all that matters, right? And so, but now we do both together. She comes to the gym with me Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and we work out with a trainer here. So if I'm out on the road, I'm traveling a lot less than I used to, but like I feel like I'm here a lot now, which is nice.
Well, I feel like when you're in a business environment where you feel like things are burning or like things are on fire, the first thing that I noticed this about myself literally probably this year, where I was like, it's weird. I have these really great days and then I have these real shit days. What's the common denominator here? And it's gotten to the point now where I'm micro detail of like, what did I eat? What did I put in my body?
Yeah.
What, did I move? Not only did I move, but what movement did I did? For me, I have to run first thing in the morning because I literally feel like a caged animal. And if I don't, I will feel that way for the rest of the day. And all my team is going to feel it.
Yes. Yeah.
It's funny. Like most of the high performance entrepreneurs that I know, it's the same. Like mine is going like this or doing a million things, but like that morning routine just to get up, to get it going is super important.
There's weird discourse on like social media about morning routines these days where like you hear like people that are like, oh, it's, productivity rain dance and stuff like that. And I've listened to it being in my 20s. I've been like, oh, maybe I do need to just get to work right out of the gate. And every time I've tried to do that, I just find myself sitting at 4:30 in the morning, staring at my laptop, not being able to call any of my team and just being like, I'm anxious. I feel like I got.
And you just hit it, Pete. Like same way. If I don't work out first thing in the morning, like I feel depressed.
Yeah.
It's like that endorphin release. It just gets you in that momentum of like, this is how my day is going to start.
Yeah.
This is how it's going to finish.
And I become very protective of my routine now too. I've been, especially in my older age now, I think I'm,
How old are you now?
I'm 42.
Damn, man. Getting up there. Soon you'll be 45 like me.
Yeah. catching up. No, it's crazy though. We're like, if people try booking these like, or scheduling me for like a really, really early meeting that's going to mess my day up, I get really upset about that.
12 p.m. is a great starting.
That's a little late. Yeah. That's a little late for me, but yeah, I gotta just get through my routine and I gotta eat. I don't understand people. Do you breakfast meetings?
No, I don't have breakfast or lunch. It's not my thing.
Oh, you don't eat anyway?
I just got back to, I was doing the fasting and I just got back to eating right after my workout before I start my day. Yeah. My anxiety levels and my energy levels have never been better. Because when you're in that fasted state, you're kind of in that fight or flight mentality. Did you at any point, were you like super measured about that type of stuff? Like, are you down to like what I eat, what I put in my body, if I have a lot of bread and carbs and stuff like that, anything in terms of that?
So I was tracking macros for a long time. And now I've kind of just do it in my head. But it's more about that's, I generally eat clean. And to your point, like especially when I'm traveling, like I try to like make sure I'm not eating a bunch of crap. And when you do, you always feel terrible. I sleep really bad that night. So yeah, I pay attention to it. But I think it's more about the macros though that I pay attention to. And trying to make sure I'm at least staying on track. We're not getting too far off, at least. I don't know.
Well, Pete, I I feel like I could continue to ask you questions for literally hours, but I appreciate your time. I guess I have one more question. When do you think, from your side of things, are you going to venture to your next? Do you see yourself going into another version of a Chomps where you're going to start something from the ground floor? And when is do you forecast a right time to do something like that?
I would say I would do that. Yeah. I mean, I gravitate towards the early days, right?
Yeah.
That's just when people reach out to me, I have a really hard time saying no and being protective of my time. When younger entrepreneurs reach out and they say, hey, I'm starting this thing. And I'm like, cool, tell me about it. Like, and I'm like, oh wait, are you doing this? Like I get like all fired up about it. And I just love that the ideas and bringing an idea to life, but then also like proving out a concept to me is like, that really is exciting to me. So I will, I'm sure, do something. I don't know if I'll do it in this capacity again, where I've been doing this for a long time now. So it's been a grind. I don't know if I'd be a CEO again, but I would definitely love to bring ideas to life in some shape or form.
Well, thank you again, man. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, Pete. You're the man.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.